Hi, welcome to Gamers Chess Club online chess lessons. My name is Jason, and this is the 9th lesson in the Introduction to Chess series. Gamers Chess Club is a recreational chess club out of Conroe, Texas, focused on introducing chess to families in a fun and friendly environment. For more information, you can email us at gamerschesskclub@gmail.com or visit the Facebook page at www.facebook.com/gamerschessclub. Today's learning objective is to learn how to use algebraic chess notation to document a game. You'll find in the links to the video a link to a PDF document with a blank scorecard if you don't have a score sheet to write on. Okay, so this is what a chessboard looks like, and what we see on here that we don't normally see, we've seen the chessboard before with the ranks and files labeled with A through H and 1 through 8. But what we've not seen is where we've highlighted the coordinates for the squares. So here you'll see, I just want to point out, I've even referred to it in lessons. When I talk about the square D2, for example, I'm talking about where the D file, this is the D file, intersects with the second rank. So this is D2. F6 would be where the F file intersects with the 6th rank, and so on. So pause the video if you want to. If you want to make sure you understand the concept, we're just labeling, when we refer to the squares, we're talking about where they intersect with each other. So, okay, so what square is the black rook on, and what about the white king? So pause your video here, try to see if you can come up with the answer and write down the cell coordinates that those are on. So the answer to the first one, the black rook is on C3. So we see this is the C file, this is the 3rd rank, and this is where they intersect at C3. So that's where the black rook is. So the white king is here. This is where the F file intersects with the 2nd rank. So that's F2. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the piece abbreviations. So for notation, one of the first things you write is the name of the piece. So they're all pretty self-explanatory. The first one is king is a K. The queen is a Q. The bishop is a B. And the knight is an N. This is a different one because the reason we can't use a K is because we already use a K. Some books will use a K, an uppercase K and a lowercase n for the knight, but most of them just use a capital N. And then a rook is R, and then the pawn doesn't have any letter associated with it. And we'll talk about how that's written down later. Keep in mind that all of these are capital letters. So when we're talking about the name of a piece, we're going to capitalize those letters. Many chess books or software will use symbols. Chess players write the abbreviations instead of using symbols. So to record a non-capturing move, so recording non-capturing moves and capturing moves are going to be recorded a little differently. So when you're just moving a piece and you're not capturing anything during that move, you first write the abbreviation of the piece, unless it's a pawn, followed by the square that it moved to. So we've learned how to name the squares, and we've learned the abbreviations. So if it's a pawn, you only write the square that it moved to. So let's try this. So based on what we just said, how would this move be written? So we know this is a pawn. This pawn doesn't have an abbreviation, so all we're going to write is the square that it moved to. And when we write the coordinates, we're using lowercase for those, so it's going to be a lowercase e4. That's what we're going to write. Okay, so how would this move be written? Pause your video, see if you can figure it out. So again, this is a pawn, so we're not going to use one of those capital letters in front. We're just going to write the square that it goes to, and the square that it's on is E5. This is where the E file intersects with the 5th rank, so lowercase e5. And then how would this move be written here? Please pause your video if you haven't done that already. Okay, so now we're going to, let's first put the piece, the abbreviation for the piece. Remember the knight was a capital N. So there's going to be a capital N, and then we're going to say where it goes to. It goes to F3. So capital N, lowercase f3 is what we would put there. Okay, this next one, how would this move be written? So again, this is the knight. It's the capital N. And again, you can pause your video if you want to try to figure this one out on your own. But it's the knight, it's the capital N, and it's moving to C6. So we would say capital N, lowercase c, 6. And then pause your video here if you like. Try to figure this one out. This is a different piece. Okay, so we're moving the bishop this time. The bishop is given the abbreviation capital B, and it's moving to B5. So this is where the B file intersects with the 5th rank. So it should be a capital B, then a lowercase b, then a 5. So bishop B5 is how we would say that. Okay, so if we were writing these down on a score sheet, you write down both your moves and your opponent's move. So if you had a score sheet in front of you, the first move that we talked about was that E4 and E5. That was the E4 for white and the E5 for black. The second move was the knight moves. The knight for white moved to F3, and the knight for black moved to C6. So that was the second move of the game for each player. And then this last move we just looked at was bishop B5. All right, so this is what the score sheet would look like if you were writing those down. And if you want to follow along with the score sheet PDF that is available by link, you're welcome to follow along. Okay, so that was how you record moves when you're not capturing. So now we're going to talk about how to record moves when you are capturing a piece. So to record a capturing move in chess, you first write the abbreviation of the piece, just like we did before, unless it's a pawn, followed by an X, a lowercase x, and then followed by the square that it moved to. So the only real difference here is that we're putting an X between the abbreviation of the piece and the square it moves to. If it's a pawn, instead of the piece abbreviation, you write the letter of the file that the pawn started on, followed by X, and then followed by the square that it moved to. So instead of just leaving it blank, like before we saw the example of E5, if we were capturing from, let's say the D pawn was capturing a piece on E5, you would say D, lowercase x, E5. So lowercase d, lowercase x, E5. So let's try it out. So how would this move be written here? So this is the same game. We're picking up sort of where we left off. It looks like black's made another move here. So how would this move be written if the bishop here captures the knight? So we said we would write the abbreviation for the piece. So capital B, X to denote that we're capturing, and then C6. So it should be capital B, lowercase x, lowercase c6. Okay, and we would say that as bishop captures c6. Okay, and how would this move be written? Pause your video if you want to try to figure it out. This is one of the pawn moves, so this one's a little bit more complicated. Okay, the way we'd write this, the pawn doesn't have an abbreviation, so if we were just moving the pawn forward, we would just write the square it went to. But in this case, we're going to write the square it came from, and I'll explain why in just a minute. So it's coming from the D file, so we're going to put a lowercase d there. It's lowercase because it's not the name of a piece. So lowercase d, and we're going to put an X because it's capturing, and we're going to C6. So lowercase d, lowercase x, lowercase c6. Now the reason we put the file that it comes from is in this case, if we just said x c6, we would know that a pawn captured on c6, but we wouldn't know if it was this b pawn or the d pawn. So we have to put where it came from. So d capture c6 is how you would write a pawn capture. Okay, so recording other moves. The other moves on your score sheet, if you do a castle move, remember that's where you're moving the king over 2 spaces and the rook is coming on the other side of it. That move is denoted by an O-O. If you're doing a kingside castle, and then on the queenside castle you add an extra O there, and it's easy to remember because it's an extra O, because that's what is called castling long. There's more squares between the king and the rook on a queenside castle. Okay, the other symbol that you'll find on a score sheet is a plus sign, and that means that whatever move was just made put the other player in check. And then the other symbol you'll see is a pound sign or a number sign or hashtag, whatever you want to call it. And you'll see that at the end of a move, and you'll see that at the end of the game. This will be the last move recorded, and that means checkmate. So other special notation involves additional information that is needed when more than one knight or rook can go to a square. In this case, you'll write the unique ranker file the piece started on immediately after the piece abbreviation. And let me show you an example of what I'm referring to here. So in this case, we've got a rook moving to D1. And if we just wrote rook D1, capital R, D1, we wouldn't know which rook we were talking about if we were having to go back and replay this game, because both of these rooks could go here. So we got to add some information. So what we're going to say here is the rook that's on the F file moved to D1. So rook, so capital R, lowercase f, D1. And so that's how we know when we're going back looking at the notation that when we say rook D1, we're referring to this rook. And the way we know that is because we add that F there. And then sometimes they're on the same file. So saying rook A would not help here. So sometimes you say the rank instead. And so if we want to say that this rook moved to A7, we would say capital R to A7. So this is, in that way we know that the rook on the second rank moved to A7, not the rook on the eighth rank. Okay, so the same thing happens with knights. If we just wrote here, knight captures D7, so capital N, lowercase x, lowercase d7, we wouldn't know which knight went to D7 because they both can. And so the way we clarify that is we say the knight on the E file captured on D7. So capital N, lowercase e, lowercase x, D7. We're clarifying that the knight that went to D7 was the one that was on the E file. Here's another example where they're on the same file, so we have to specify which rank it's coming from. So if we just wrote knight captured D6, we wouldn't know which knight went to D6. So last time we clarified this by adding the file. This time we're going to clarify this by adding the rank. So we would say, in this case, the knight does capture on D6, so we know NX D6 is going to be there, but we need to say which knight. So we're going to say capital N 8 captured D6. Okay, so right here, in capital N 8, lowercase x, lowercase d6. Okay, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed learning how to document a chess game. You're going to want to go back and watch this lesson a few times. There's a lot of information in it. This takes a lot of practice to get used to. Before you start trying to document your own games, check out lesson IC10. And we're first going to follow along with a historic game. We're going to look at the documentation and make the moves on the chessboard, and it'll help you get used to it. And then after that, you'll be able to document your own games. So thanks again. I hope to see you on that lesson.